Richard Grace. He's on first every time. I'm sad that Richard Grace isn't on Global Star Party anymore.
Why isn't he?
Because he's moving. He's changing his life
Where's he going?
to someplace better, I guess. Mike Wiesner says hello. He says soon enough he'll be back on. Beatrice Hines, hello everybody. Astor Beard says 2 Bortle 4. He doesn't like
Ooh. He's going somewhere better. You are right.
2 Bortle 4. How about our pal in Singapore is in like Bortle 8, shooting through
That's
a window.
That's nuts.
Pekka
Through a
says,
window?
Good Tuesday. Yeah, he just shoots through a window.
Wow.
He's polar aligned inside of his house, his condo.
That's crazy.
And to get the scope up to the window, he has to push the polar end of the mount all the way up to the wall.
That's nuts.
Hey, man. When
Whatever works.
Like lemonade, you know?
I mean, it's amazing that he's able to get good stuff with
And he gets great stuff. He does. It's
through a window.
amazing. I know I would never recommend it to anyone, except after I saw his stuff, then I recommend it to everybody.
Just not a window screen.
Yeah, you know, unless you want diffraction spikes on virtually everything.
Might be a psychedelic picture.
Cool. Mike says, Tyler, welcome back. We missed you.
Oh, Mike. I haven't been anywhere. Just not here. Oh.
So we got a pretty nice global star party coming up here tonight.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Who's all invited? Everybody?
If everybody's invited, sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
Any special
We'll
guests?
have Dave Eicher, who's not been on for a while. He's coming on. We got Chuck Allen. You know, he's always giving interesting, presentations and stuff. But
Of course.
then we got Daniel Barth, who has never been on a Global Star Party, I don't think.
Ooh.
So
No,
he'll
he
be
is
on.
not.
Yeah. And then Cesar Brolo, and he is introducing a professor. His name is Mariano Poisson, and he's going to be covering solar physics for the San Miguel Solar Observatory. And then Kareem Jaffer, you know, he's a professor up at John Abbott College in Montreal, Canada. We'll take a break, and then Molly Wakeling comes on, and then we got Nico the Hammer, and maybe Gary Palmer. Gary says he should be on. Maxie Fillars.
Yep.
Cameron Gillis. And who else?
Everybody.
Pekka's invited. He's watching right now, so hoping he comes on. We're supposed to have a little video from Vivian White about the International Observe the Moon Night program that we're doing. And then that's kind of it. So.
You know who I haven't seen in a while is Chuck Stahl. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah. Shailendra Sharma, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in a while.
I saw some emails on the forum every once in a while, on the forum or on Cloudy Nights or someplace. I think he went disconnected from the forum.
Did he?
Actually, I think he left the forum for some reason.
Yeah, I think he's been really busy with work. That's been the issue.
It's a good thing to be busy on work.
Yeah.
Um, Flight loop, the Eurobot is now moving and it's approaching the lander. He should see the 2D map updating and it's visible.
This is so cool. So you got a guy on the International Space Station controlling that rover, simulating a activity on a moon base.
By turning the page.
Yeah, turning a page.
Competition for drawing such a fantastic picture of space.
Welcome use a GOTO on call flight loop. Yeah, so he just... That's if you're fine enough that we continue with the flight of the proceed.
I think they wouldn't put such bouncy tires on the thing.
Maybe they're trying to simulate how bouncy it is on the moon.
I guess. You can see the hand jiggling a little bit.
Hey, my hand trembles sometimes, you know. I would be, if I could just get the thing lined up, I'd be happy. It's quite an arm they got, though. Look at that thing.
Yeah, he's been exercising.
Yeah, that's right.
I think he'll probably do 1,000-pound curls.
Oh, yeah, with one arm tied behind its back.
There's a big.
Wait a minute, it only has one arm. Okay.
Yeah. They could do keg lifts with the, keg presses with the keg curls, I guess is what you call them.
You know, Tarek says he's really tired and sleepy, so he's going to watch another time. Good night, Tarek.
Looks like he's going to take a bite out of that handle.
Yeah, it's like a Bond movie, you know, where the mechanical hand just like can crush a bowling ball.
Right.
An 8-ball. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, I think that they'll build out, you know, they build out colonies on the moon and Mars. They'll probably build them like this.
Yeah, it'll have Tesla self-driving AI on it.
Oh, heck yeah.
And Andy, that's outstanding. Everybody's very happy here, and you are good to proceed with steps 7 and 8 to complete the activity.
Good work.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts from Explore Scientific and the Explore Alliance, and it is the 172nd episode of the OpenGOTO community. So congratulations. You're well on your way to 200, Jerry. So,
200, right? Yeah, we'll get 200 here before too long. It won't be a few more.
It's not a bicentennial. I guess it would be a bicentennial of
Yeah,
some
it's a
sort.
bicentennial.
That's right. But we have Tyler Bowman, who has not been on with us for quite a while, and of course, Jerry, and they are going to cover troubleshooting. and kind of the troubleshooting process using, our focus is, of course, the PMC-8. So I'm going to turn this over to you guys.
Yeah, we'll be talking about general troubleshooting techniques that when you approach problems. There's a lot of factors involved. I think last year or maybe a year and a half ago, I talked about some troubleshooting techniques, and there's formal troubleshooting and informal troubleshooting, of course. But again, to get to the bottom of things, you typically need to really understand the whatever you're troubleshooting pretty well. You either have to have reference materials, or you have to have knowledge of the system and the areas that you want to fix, right? So I know Tyler is a very knowledgeable astronomer, and he's got a lot of time with the PMC-8. But the system, there's a lot to the system, and the system has a lot of functions. So if you have a failure in a function, the first thing is to be able to detect the failure, okay? Now, not only that, are you aware that that function is failed? Are you aware of that function? That's the thing. So you may see some functions that are available in the PMC-8 that you're not aware of, that could cause you problems, but you're not even aware of the issue. Okay, it's kind of late. It's called a latent failure that's sitting out there waiting for you to discover. Okay, depending on what you're doing at the time and what your needs are with the system, because the system again is a very flexible system. It can be configured a lot of different ways. Probably 90% of the users aren't going to bother with that. They're going to use Explore stars connected to the wireless connection and then drive them out like they normally do when they take it out to use visually. But it's capable of a lot more, of course, and we cater to all kinds of astronomers that have different needs for the mount system. So in general, one of the things is that if the system has a problem, it can either be a basic problem where you have a connection problem, or as a beginner, you don't understand how to make the thing move the way you want. Maybe you're not familiar with the German equatorial mount. Maybe you're thinking when we say left, right, up, down on the controller, it doesn't move up and down. It moves at an angle, and you're not sure why. So again, it's all about familiarity with the system and how it works. That's really the baseline for any troubleshooting, is you need to understand the system. Otherwise, you won't be able to effectively troubleshoot it. And we're here to help. You can call us and we can explain to you how the system works. And you can describe to us the trouble that you're having or that you think you're having, because sometimes what you think might be an issue might be a design feature. Okay. It's not
right.
a bug. It's not that we put a bug in the system. It's just that you don't quite understand why it's doing what it's doing. So that's a general outline.
That's not our way of just getting out of things.
Yeah, right. That's how we get out. Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's a feature.
Yeah, it's a feature. That's the way it's supposed to be. So leave us alone. No, we don't do that.
Right. That's right.
No. Where'd Tyler go?
I'm here.
Okay. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need to go over some product troubleshooting. That way the customers know that it's not, I hate to say it this way, not the PMC-8's fault, but it's external software that they're using. It could either be not installed correctly, and we're hoping to show them the correct pathway so they know what to troubleshoot, how to troubleshoot it, and get them going quickly. And I hate to say it again, instead of calling us and asking for the answer when they know what the answer can be if they look at it for a little bit.
Right.
Well,
So our goal is to provide you stuff up front where you can help yourself as much as possible. And
Yep.
again, it takes a mindset of, okay, I'm gonna troubleshoot this myself. I'm gonna attempt to do this. So the first item is to learn as much as you can about the system. That's the first key point to learn how to troubleshoot. You have to understand the system.
Yes, sir.
And then so unfortunately for some people that takes time, and you have to make a little bit of effort to find the documentation and to read it and understand it.
But Jerry, the good thing about it nowadays, with anything that's ASCOM related, it gives you an error. So it gives you a source code to look up on what that error could be.
Could be,
So
yes.
it definitely makes it easier nowadays to troubleshoot than it did probably back 20 years ago.
Oh, well, yeah, even 10 years ago, it was a lot
Yeah.
different than it is today. Things have gotten a lot better in terms of operational performance. Oh, there's my dog.
Well, we made a comment that the PMC-8 never fails. Actually, that's not entirely true, but I would say that over the years of us sending out shipping PMC-8s, I can probably count on 1.5 hands how many have actually come back. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't know
Right.
what half a hand is. Maybe it's
Yeah,
like,
it's
like
like,
that, or
right.
like that, you know. So, so not very many, not very many.
No, we've been very fortunate in the operation and the reliability of the system. But it's designed to be reliable also, so we can take credit for that, Scott and I. So if you do have a problem, you got to step back and realize, for beginners especially, you may be the first one to find this, but typically not. You got to think that this has been discovered before if it's an issue. And you've got to assume also that it's not an issue that everybody has. That's the other side point. So because you've got a failure doesn't mean it's widespread and every PMC-8 mount has this problem. If it's related to if it's the PMC-8's fault. Okay, if there's a fault in the PMC-8, then it's actually failed. It's not delivered that way, I guess is one way to put it. It's not something that everybody runs into. Okay.
Mhm.
And typically though, so like Scott said, there's been very few failures like that. We've had manufacturing defects where parts have
Yep.
actually been delivered broken, and it may be part of the shipping issue that we have sometimes. It could be other things. I know other products that we deliver have problems in shipping where the packaging wasn't 100% correct, or it had a weird thing go on where you've had screws come out of focusers, you've had and other things, and you've had parts laying in the bottom of the box and stuff like that. We typically don't see that with the PMC-8, even with the mounts. I don't know, how often does that happen, Tyler?
Very rarely does it happen, but it does happen. It definitely does.
So, and we've had that a couple times with the PMC-8 where the Wi-Fi module has come off of the circuit board, for example. There's been 2 of those, and that's a manufacturing defect. And then we've actually had Wi-Fi module fail on us in some way, but typically I would say 99.9% of the times, or 99%, let's say, it's going to be something that was done by the owner of the PMC-8, or it was a change that they made following our instructions that didn't go right, and they think it's broken the system. It doesn't respond like they expect anymore, and they need us to help get them out of that jam, which we can. So that's one key thing to understand about the PMC-8. It's never gonna brick itself unless it's actually got hardware failure.
Correct.
So that's something else to keep in mind.
Some of it is trying to get the PMC-8 to use with third-party products. Jerry, you know, as I well know, ASI Air has come up a lot. People use it a lot, but they don't seem to understand the instructions for it. And even if they do, they try to use the same cable that they had to switch the DTR signal to update the PMC-8. And again, I always tell people that get the ASI Air, it would behoove them to get 2 of those FTDI chipsets. So they have one for the PMC-8 and then one for the ASI Air, because you'll have to switch the signals back and forth. It could be a hassle.
You mean one for Windows and one for the
Well, yeah,
ASI
one
Air.
for, correct. One for the Windows and the ASI Air. It's just easier for updating at that point. And then you can still use your ASI Air continuously without having to switch the signal. And then you won't have to remember switching back and forth. That's one thing I've seen a lot come up, is I can't get my iXOS 100 to communicate, but there's nothing really to do on that one. Just plug in a cable and then the FTDI chipset. But hopefully with the cable that we just came out with, we'll fix that issue.
Right. So the basics of troubleshooting is, number one rule is find the documentation for the product and either understand why you're troubleshooting or understand beforehand the way the system works and the area that you're specifically having an issue with. Now, you've identified it as an issue. Okay, so for example, let's say your auto guiding isn't working correctly. Okay, and you think your ST4 port's not responding right, or not sending out commands to the mount, or the mount's not responding to the commands coming from your camera. And I'm talking about the legacy ST4 port here in terms of hardware. ASCOM and the Indy driver does have the pulse guide feature that uses the driver to move the mount through the standard communications cable. You don't have an ST4 cable, dedicated hardware cable to do that. So let's say you've got a problem with the ST4 port with your camera connected. It seems like it moves it north-south, but it won't move it east-west when you're doing pulse, when you're PhD2, when you're pulse guiding, or not when you're pulse guiding, but when you're doing the ST4 guiding. It's when PhD2 or what other program you use to move your mount to correct for tracking, it's not responding. Okay, so now you say, okay, what's involved with this feature? Okay, you're using the ST4 port on the PMC-8. You're using your camera, right? And the camera's got relay outputs that feed into the mount through the ST4 port. That's an example of what you need to understand about, okay, how does that connect? How does it work? It's contact closure inputs to the PMC-8. Okay, so now there's 2 sides of it. Now you need to find out whether your is your camera actually sending out these contact closures, or is it the PMC-8 that's not interpreting them? Right. So there's 2 sides to the story, right? Just like there always is. Like software and hardware guys, they go back and forth blaming each other for a problem, right? Fortunately for us, we're the same people, so we can't blame ourselves. We can blame ourselves for the problem regardless of what side it is. So if you were to look up the PMC-8 documentation, you would discover that the early versions of the PMC-8 used an analog ST4 port interface, all right, which means it has to be calibrated maybe for your camera. If your camera is not one of the standard cameras, or doesn't use certain features, it may not be calibrated for your camera. So you have to discover that. It's in our FAQs. We do talk about it on the early designs of the PMC-8 system. It has this analog ST4 port. This is only on the Exos 2 and the G11. Okay, the iXOS 100 has a digital interface, not the analog interface that we originally started with. So that's something to discover. Now all of a sudden you can query the forum or ask about it, and somebody might pop up and say, oh yeah, you've got the box with the analog input, your calibration might not be right on your DEC axis compared to your RA axis, or whatever's failing. So that could be your problem. And then you can say, okay. And there's procedures out there. There is documentation to tell you how to test that and to see what the values are. It's a little convoluted. It's a techie thing. It's pretty technical. And not everybody's going to do that. All the astrophotographers going to say, hey, I can't guide this thing right. The PMC-Eight's broken. And so we'll query them for these we'll ask questions about what mount you have, what's the box, is it a digital or analog ST4 port, and then we'll narrow it down from there. But that's the same troubleshooting techniques that we'll use, that you'll be able to use if you've read enough about it or you have experience with the system. You'll understand that's where the issue might be. So that's an example.
Right.
Of a failure.
Another comment I'll make too is often when you're working with a client and you're doing the troubleshooting with them over the phone, sometimes you have to go all the way back and ask the most basic questions,
Right.
Even though you're working with somebody that's advanced, very knowledgeable, many of our customers are engineers themselves. Sometimes that makes it harder if they're already an engineer because
engineers
thinking,
assume
this is the way it ought to work, okay, versus the way it works, right?
Exactly. They think it ought to work, or they get this paradigm in their head that this is the way I would design it. This is the way I would make it work.
Yeah, that happens often. So beginners usually have an easier time of going through troubleshooting sequences like that. Having done a lot of customer service work, you're always apologizing to the customer saying, gosh, I got to ask you these questions, if you already know them, forgive us, but we gotta go through it, so.
Right. It's like when you have a problem with your cable modem and you always got to come out, you restart it, you've reset it, you've unplugged it, plugged it back in, reconnected, and then you call them and you say, well, you have to step through this again. And you can't tell them I've done it already. They force you to do it.
I've had customers that, and this is when I worked for Mead Instruments, and we were doing setups where they were trying to control the LX200 with like the Sky software program or something, and they would be beating their heads against the wall. And these are people I know, okay, were advanced amateur astronomers, and say, "Wait a minute, did you turn it on?" And they go, "I'll get back to you, Scott."
Yeah, right. Let me check on that.
But more often than not, it's not like that.
Well, it could be.
There are issues that do have to be dealt with, and they can be hardware related or software related. Sometimes it's technique. Of how you're configuring things.
Well, there's also a hardware type failure is one of the basic things is when you connect everything up, sometimes the connectors don't seat all the way and you lose signal. So I've had that where people have not plugged in the deck access cable correctly, and the RA moves fine, but the deck doesn't move at all. And you're talking, well, are the cables connected fully? Are they fully seated? And they'll go check out, oh, I found the deck cable loose. It's on there, but it's not tight.
Right.
And so you can have intermittent connections with the signals going to the motors on that.
That's right. A couple of comments here. One from Martin Eastburn. He says, there's almost no instructions on the ASI Air Pro. More install guide and not, or a mere install guide, not much more on how it works. I learn more here, watching them here from that sheet of paper. David Simons, what's that?
I was fixing to say there is an actual instruction booklet on our side, but not on their side. I don't know why they don't do a booklet or anything, but I had to write it out. And there was a gentleman before me wrote out instructions on how to switch the DTR signal to get it to communicate with the air in our product. So I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we do have that product or that information at least for the air.
Well, is he talking about?
Go ahead.
Sorry, is he talking more about how you use the product or how you install it and how to make it work? So there's different things to look at. One is, all right, I've got this nice control program and I kind of understand what it does, but how does that help me as an astronomer? You know what I mean? Why do I need this feature in this program? Why is this good for me? That type of thing. And it takes experience. It just takes understanding and fooling around with it, I guess, sometimes to understand what's the purpose of the program versus how do I get it to work.
right? Which kind of takes us all the way back to having a sequence, a guide that's a sequence of notes that you've taken. 1, do this; 2, do that; 3, do this. And follow through a checklist, just like an
Right.
astronaut would, or someone
Right.
running a nuclear power plant, for example. Okay, they follow a very strict sequence of events that they do, and that's for startup and shutdown.
Right.
So,
Right.
and if,
And
if you're not following those guides, sometimes you're tired or you've got other things you're thinking about at the same time, and you skip something. So
right. That's a big error cause too, is when you're when you're going through your process. If you've got it, you don't have a checklist and you've got it in your mind, and you get in the middle of it and you get interrupted, and then you just go back to the next thing you think you were going to do, and you skip a step or you miss something,
that's right.
and that's when that's causes an error. So that's right. So one of the things about checklists is, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought.
You need your checklist, Jerry,
I
on
need my
how to do
checklist,
the
right?
show.
Right, exactly. I need the checklist. I was going to say something about checklists in terms of they keep you on track for sure.
Right. Pekka
Mhm.
says a panic button is almost a must.
Ah,
Pekka likes panic buttons. Um, well, so where do people? I mean, how do you, if you're setting up your equipment? I mean, I would say that you'd probably at least want to have a checklist that you're going over. A lot of people think they can just keep this in their head, but there's too many things that can really distract you as an amateur astronomer. You might see like an incredible bolide fall from the sky or something. I guarantee you're going to forget everything you just did once you see this thing come down and
yeah,
sparks are flying from it, and maybe a smoke trail or something. Um, or other things are happening. You get a phone call, you get whatever it is. There's a zillion things that can interrupt you, and
right,
and
right.
you need to know where you were. What was the last thing you finished? So
Kind of like Jerry with his MSRO. He has the complete checklist that he has to follow before he can get that thing even up
yeah,
and
it's
running.
cool too because he's got it like as a
It's literally
splash
on his screen.
Oh, and the
Mhm.
desktop. Yeah, I incorporated on the desktop to make it easy. And it's absolutely, so checklists are different from procedures. Okay, so you might have a procedure to do something, which is kind of like following a recipe. All right, you have it in hand and you follow it and do the steps as you read it. Okay, that's a procedure.
Yeah.
A checklist is something that you've learned and trained on, and you commit it to memory and you perform it. And then you go back to the checklist and say, check to make sure I did this, 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 and this. And that's an after the fact prompter to make sure you've done everything on the list. It's a little different. So there's different levels of ways you do the either a procedure or a checklist. Checklists are much easier. They're just general memory tools to keep you on track to make sure you don't forget something. Where a
Right.
procedure is a more detailed process where you need to do things in order and not skip anything, otherwise
Oh
it'll
yeah.
fail, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of
You-
things in our setup with the telescope systems, you can do in any order. There's a preferred order, but you could do a lot of things in different orders. It's not critical. So that's what a checklist is for, to make sure you do everything, but you don't necessarily have to do it in the correct order, or in the suggested order, I should say.
Let's see. David Samard says, he says, I followed the last program that Jerry made last week and everything connected. It just can't have have like the tablet, the control of the mount, and I have the PMC-8 GOTO. Please understand, it's me, not the telescope. So let's see, David, just can't have like the tablet control the mount. Oh, maybe you're just saying you can't get the tablet
To
the mount.
control.
Okay.
So let's troubleshoot that a little bit. So what could impact the communications of the tablet to the telescope if it's not? So first thing you want to look at, is it receiving data from the mount at all? Is it getting updates on the display? If it's not, then you're did you set up your Wi-Fi channel, your Wi-Fi, not the channel, but the Wi-Fi SSID correctly to connect? That's an important piece of information to understand the connection. The next thing is that maybe your environment has got a lot of Wi-Fi traffic,
Wi-Fi. Yeah.
and you need to change a channel or try a different channel. That's a whole process in itself to do that change. Now, the tools we have available today with the latest firmware make that much easier to do. There's also, you do have a way to do it manually with the dongle, with the ST4 port that we've configured. And that's a training thing to learn how to do that. You know, there's little processes that you need to train on if you want to be able to get the full benefit of the system in terms of the performance and what you can do with it. It takes time. I know as a beginner, you want to just basically focus on the easiest stuff first, which is basically what you're doing with the ExploreStars app. You have to do basic connection and get it up and running where you can move it around. So, but unfortunately, there are things that you still have to make sure that are done before you can connect up, which is get your SSID correct. And if you're having intermittent problems or it won't connect, then maybe look at the channel number that you're connected on. And that takes a little bit of knowledge and skill to be able to do that. Theoretically, it should work right out of the box, but that's in a perfect environment. And that's as long as you follow through on your side with your tablet and setting the correct SSID and password. That's really the only thing you have to do out of the box that you're required to do is set the SSID correctly and enter the password. And then it should connect up and start up. The program should start up good. And the other thing you have to do is go download the program off the Apple or the Android store and install it. So that is a requirement for beginners to do. We don't, the assumption we have to make when we sell you these devices and we don't provide you a hand box is that you understand your computer, whatever host computer, tablet, whatever it is, you understand how to operate that and set the settings accordingly. We can help you with that, but we don't, but that's the assumption we have going in when we sell you the product.
So David comes back and he says, tablet works the mount, but it does not connect on the computer. On computer, the hub.
All right, so do you have a adapter cable, an FTDI adapter cable from DB9 to USB? That would be the first question I would ask.
How would you know if it's got FTDI?
You'd have to, so when you plug it into your computer, your PC, and it discovers it, you have to go to the device manager, and look up that, see that it's got a driver, that it created the communications port when you plugged it in. Sometimes the host computer doesn't have the driver installed, and you'll not see it pop up anything on the cable. So FTDI publishes it's called a virtual COM port, where it assigns that USB connection to COM3 or COM5, whatever it happens to be. It'll assign that port to it, and that driver is the virtual COM port driver. So that's the first thing to make sure your cable, when you plug in your cable, it should pop up and assign a virtual COM port to your cable. Once you get that done, then you know, yes, I can plug it now into the PMC-8 and it should communicate.
Right.
So one of the things, if you're trying to use ExploreStars on the wireless port, which is ExploreStars is only wireless, and you're trying to use the ASCOM at the same time, you have to use ASCOM with the hardwired adapter cable. You can't connect the ASCOM driver through the wireless at the same time that ExploreStars is on the wireless. That doesn't work that way. So you can use both, but you have to have the ASCOM driver connect through the COM port on the hardwired cable into the computer.
Oh, so you have to have like a cable. One can be Wi-Fi communication, and the other one's cable communication. And it would make sense that,
Right,
of course, Explore Stars would be the Wi-Fi
right.
side of
That's right.
that. So, David, if you are running into a brick wall with this, then you can get in touch with us in customer service, and we can log on. You know, we can use Zoom or some other platform. We can get on with you and help you solve it. So,
That's right. We've done that in the past quite a bit.
we've done it live on this show before.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He says everything is go green. The part of the Explore Stars doesn't come on. Don't come on. Wait.
He's got the please wait function.
That's the Windows version of.
Yeah.
Which tablet do you have?
Well, it sounds like which please wait. It could be internet issue or the oh darn it, what was that other one?
The channel.
Yeah, it could be the channel. They may have too much interference running around in the Wi-Fi or the neighbors or
Oh yeah.
that are using all the same thing.
So
And
this
with
is
the,
right.
so with the new UFCT, I think a universal firmware configuration tool. I did pronounce it right. That's a mouthful. You're actually able to switch to whatever channel you're using. There is a program that you can use in Windows. Jerry, you may know it off the top of your head. It's like Network Check or something that you can check the Wi-Fi channel around the neighborhood.
I use Wi-Fi Info View.
Yeah, Wi-Fi Info View, and that'll tell you. Yeah, and it'll tell you around your 30 or 40 foot radius who's using what channel with what device, and then you just pick the opposite channel that nobody's using, and it should beam right up.
Okay, so David says he's using an Android tablet, and on the computer he has the cable.
Android tablet, please wait.
All right. So I would start by simplifying first. So he says Explore Stars on the Android works fine. Is that correct?
I think that's what he says. Yeah.
So has he using the latest? Has he installed the universal firmware, the updated firmware that we released with the cable that he's got? Has he done that upgrade?
I don't know. We'll let David answer that question. But he says his first thing is, I followed the program the last program when Jerry.
Okay, so he did. That's what I did then. I updated the firmware.
And he said everything connected. I just can't have like the tablet control the mount. And I have the PMC-Eight Exos 2. Please understand it's me, not the telescope.
Yeah, he's saying it's user error. So my question is, what version of the Android are you running?
I'm not concerned about that side. I'm concerned about his configuration of the ASCOM driver, because that's the part that doesn't work. It sounded like the Explore Stars work, but he should be able to communicate with both at the same time. That's the latest firmware that he installed based on what I showed last week. So the only thing left is to make sure, like I said, make sure that the virtual COM port is being assigned to the cable, which it sounds like it is because he was able to update the firmware. All right. So in order to do that and to run those programs, it has to be doing that. The next thing is that the last thing is when he connects up the PMC-Eight to the ASCOM driver, has he selected the serial connection on the ASCOM driver? There's a button at the top above the tabs when you set up the ASCOM driver that says use Wi-Fi or serial. He has to select serial, and then he has to select the correct port number that it's assigned, that his driver is assigned that COM port. That's all that's left to make it work, pretty much.
Right.
And so I don't know if I actually selected those items or showed those items when I was demonstrating it last week. I can do it right now and show it.
Yeah, I'm just
Actually,
wondering
I
if
share-
David Samard is actually set up with his computer and everything and can log on with us. David, if you want to do that, send me an email and I'll give you the log on Zoom. And that's
Yeah,
my email address.
let me share my desktop and I'll bring up the driver just to show what I'm talking about. So it sounds like everything works except for this driver issue.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. Oh, let me start up something first. All right. I'm going to share the ASCOM driver configuration, ASCOM driver configuration form window. My share.
Harold Locke says, ultimately, we need for backyard, what we need for a backyard is a solid hardwired observatory tied to your LAN and sharing the desktop while you kick back also watching inside the observatory.
Right, right. So I'm trying to get rid of some of these proprietary windows so everybody doesn't show our secrets. So you can see my whole desktop there, right?
You sure can.
So can you see the mouse okay?
Yeah.
So right here is the selection for whether you're connecting the driver either Wi-Fi or serial. It's got to be selected to serial. And the other thing is you have to select the COM port to make it communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done that, then it should work. You can hit OK and hit OK, and then I don't know if I got it. Let me connect it up. Let me turn my PMC-Eight on.
We have next up is Wheeljack Shop. He says, I'm using a PlayStation controller cable to connect my iXOS 100 with the computer because it has the same connectors, but I can't make the mount work yet.
It may not have the same connector. I think the PlayStation is just a charging cable. You need a data cable. There's a difference.
So, yeah. So down here in the lower left, you can see that I connected with the ASCOM driver to POTH, and you can see it's got data coming back from it. So that's once you get the cable, it sounds like the cable's working for you, and because you downloaded and updated the firmware. So all that's left is to make sure that the correct selections are on the ASCOM driver. I don't know if I went through that. Again, this screen right here in detail. Pop up here.
No, Jerry, that's the one that I had trouble getting back to. And that's what solved one of my problems with the customers getting to that particular screen.
This driver
The driver setup. Yep.
Yeah, right. So you got there's three things you have to choose here when you're using the wired cable. You have to select your correct mount. Okay. You have to make sure you're selected to the serial port, enable serial port. Now, that's kind of a misnomer. That enables the serial port connection for the driver. Doesn't turn the serial port on. Okay, in the hardware. All this does is enables the selection of the serial port through the driver. There's one other thing I can show, and that's the device manager to make sure that the driver is correct. And that's what I'll show you here. So I know that this cable I'm using is COM5. So you'll get the device manager up, and then you should see this entry right here where it says ports, COM, and LPT. See that?
Mm-hmm.
and there's 2 ports on my system right now. There's 5 and 3, and this 5 is the one that I know is the one I'm using. So this is where you see that it's an FTDI. That's how you can tell what kind of cable you have right there.
It says FTDI.
Yep, it says FTDI, and then you can select the driver tab, and it gives you more information about it. See right there.
I see.
That's in the device manager. So that's that. That's the only thing I can suggest. I think that would be the only thing that's left that's not working would maybe be those items.
Hmm. Okay.
So what we just talked about, it's important to understand how things work and why things are the way they are. And that's what we just explained. What's his name, David?
Yes.
David Samard. Yes.
So, yeah, so we just explained to David the features that were important to this problem that he's looking at, that he's brought to us. And that's the kind of process you would go through for any problem, is you would say, okay, you got to ask yourself questions on, okay, what parts of this system are involved with this issue. And then you got to understand, okay, it's a cable problem, or is it a communications problem, or is it a configuration problem? Those are different areas that could have issues. You know, hardware, configuration, software, or settings, and those are the things to keep in mind with the systems.
Right. Yeah, and David, I don't see an email from you, but if you want to get in touch with us later, if you're still struggling with this, we're here for you, man. So.
Yep. Any other questions out there in the audience?
Let's see. Wheeljack has no more comments here. Tarek, who was going to go to sleep, couldn't go to sleep, so he's back watching the program. What else is going on here? Let me recognize some of the people that came on our show today. We have Richard Grace, the Astro Beard, Mike Wiesner, Beatrice Hines is here with us, Pekka's here with us, Kyle Bannister is with us, and Martin Eastburn, of course, Harold Locke, and who else? I like recognizing all these people. Jim's Astro is on. He says hello, everybody. Book Davies, he's on, I always like it when someone who has just been watching but never comments finally does comment. It's like, hey, because we can see you out there, right?
Yep.
So
We can feel you out there lurking.
you're out there lurking. Yeah, that's right. And who else? A guy named Tyler Bowman is on. I don't know if you guys know him. Let's see.
You're muted. Yep.
No, that guy's terrible.
Is he?
Yeah, he's terrible. I heard bad things about him.
Yeah, we got a big thick file on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Of course, David Samard, who we've been talking to here. And I think Wheeljack Shop. I don't know who Wheeljack Shop is, but
no, that name's not familiar to me either.
Must be from the Wheeljack Shop. So, that's right. Wheeljack Shop says a shout out to Papa Heath. That's right. If you guys don't know it, he customer service had twins, right? It was twins.
Yep.
Oh, really? Twins?
Yep.
That's a
Boy and
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
right.
Cool. Twins.
Jeff Wise is on with us. So, anyways, want to thank all you guys for tuning in today. If you have more questions, you think of it later, certainly hit us up on customer service or hit us up on the next program for the OpenGOTO community. We're happy to answer those questions. Tonight, we have the 65th Global Star Party. And so that'll be great. It's the theme of it is look back time. And if you're not familiar with what look back time is, it is it's the time that when you're looking at a star or a galaxy, and it relates to the distance and how far back into time you're looking. So that's it. And there's lots of ways to explain that, and so our guests that are coming on tonight, our presenters, will dish up some good explanations for you. Aside from just the idea that virtually everything that you see, whether it's another person just in the room or you're looking at Quasar 3C273, you are always looking into the past, okay, because of the space between you and the object. So light takes some time to get to you. So you don't see people in real time. You're seeing them the briefest fraction of a second ago.
Right.
So if that doesn't mess with your head, I don't know what will. So, so anyhow, until that time, do as our friend Jack Horkheimer always used to say, is to keep looking up. And we'll be back in just about, is it
3 hours
right now? So
Yep. 2 hours, 3 hours.
2 hours. Yep.
Yep.
2 hours. Actually, we
Boy.
log on a little bit early.
Yeah, you gotta have the pre-show.
Pre-party, and then we have the
Yeah.
party, and then we have the after party. So,
Too many parties.
Yep, that's right. So anyhow,
BYOB.
yeah, LB. That's right. You guys have fun, and we'll see you in a little bit. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.